And we're live. Hey guys, I hope you're doing well. Good afternoon. I think it's afternoon in most of the US right now, but I know we've got a few international viewers too. Hello, y'all. If you are not in the US, let me know what time it is where you are right now, because Lord knows I love to see. We have a special guest that's going to be joining us today. She is 2003, Susie Castillo. You guys have sent in so much encouragement about Susie being on today, and we've got a really important talk. Hello, Susie!
Hi!
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you again. Just saw you 15 minutes ago.
I know. How's New York, man? It's crazy over there.
Yeah, New York is great. New York is great. It looks like, okay, so I asked people a second ago to send me what time it is in their time zone if they're not in the US, and it looks like it's
fun.
3 a.m. maybe in the Philippines, I think that is. King Garcia. And Nia Sanchez is watching too. Hey, girl.
Oh, hi, Nia.
So, y'all, we are going, let me turn my volume up for a second.
Oh, my gosh. 1 a.m. for somebody I see.
Oh, wow.
Oh, you guys are up late. Wow. Thanks for joining.
Nighttime in Germany. Somebody in here is from France.
Awesome.
So today, guys, we're going to be talking about using pageants as a platform. There are so many women who have won pageants or just competed in pageants and have gone on to do great things, to speak out in our communities. And so we're going to be talking about that in the context of everything that's going on today, the George Floyd murder, the indictment of the officers who were involved in his death, and the protests that have broken out. It's incredible. So we're going to be talking about all of that. But first, I have to tell you guys a little bit more about Susie, who we have on today. Like I said, Susie was Miss USA 2003. She was the third Latina to win the title. Aside from being Miss USA, she's also a television host. She's an actress. She's an author. You should check out her reel sometime. I just watched it, Susie. I didn't tell you that.
That's funny.
I was like, oh my gosh, yes, Susie. Like,
oh, thank you.
She was also a Neutrogena ambassador. She was an MTV VJ, which was really cool. And currently, you were one half of Pageantology.
I am, yeah.
Yeah, so thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. My gosh. Yeah, Shandy Finnessy, Miss USA 2004, and I started Pageantology 6 years ago now. And we just had our sixth birthday. But yeah, so much. That's crazy. Like when you put everything, when you lay it out like that, I'm like, oh wow, look at all the fun things. Look at all the fun things I've done.
Think about all the things you've done.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like you just forget, right? Because I'm just living life and working hard, and the hustle continues even now. So it's like it's never ending, and it is fun sometimes to like go back, or when you do something like this where somebody kind of lays it out for you, like your whole life. But I have to say, none of those things would have happened if it wasn't for being Miss USA. Like it was definitely, that was what catapulted my entire career, and even what I'm doing today. Still, I mean, I'm still hosting, so it's pretty awesome.
Well, I think your win and everything you did afterwards inspired so many people. There's somebody on here, Cindy Davila, says, Susie was my reason for joining the Miss California USA pageant. Thank you, Susie, for representing for the curly-haired ladies. Yes.
Yes, I know.
Thank
you guys, you're so welcome. This is like my quarantine hair right now. I didn't want to. You're so good. I'm like, Chelsea's going to show up with like her big mane and it's going to be on point. I'm like, I was working earlier and I'm like, okay, I'll take a break. I'll have a nice convo with Miss Cheslie and then I'll get back to work. So I'm like, this is what y'all are going to get right now.
I wish my quarantine hair looked as good as your hair does right now. Because literally the only reason that my hair is out right now is because I have a couple of interviews with Extra today. And so I was like, I need to make sure I wear my hair down. Otherwise, like my hair would be back.
I wanted to say though, Cheslie, too, like, so proud of you. Like, I can't remember the last time something like this happened where Miss USA became like, a correspondent like this for a major entertainment news show. So congratulations. So proud of you. And you're amazing. Like, just such a natural on camera. Like, you're great. So good.
Thank you so much. That means a lot coming from you who have like done this. Like, you're a pro. My God.
But it's true. Like, you just, whew. So good.
So one of the things we talked about when we were prepping for this was, talking about the progress that pageants and the Miss Universe organization specifically have made over the years. So when you won Miss USA in 2003, Do you think that the racial environment was different than it is now? Like I said, you're the third Latina to win. Do you think that you received largely, positive responses from people? Or do you think there were some trolls here or there that were just like being hateful?
I feel like there's always trolls here and there for everybody, no matter who you are, right? No matter what color your skin is. So I definitely experienced a little bit of that, but by and large, it was very supportive, because not only had there not been a Latin Miss USA in a long time, but I was the first one in a long time, I think, that was bilingual, that spoke Spanish fluently. I mean, English is actually my second language. I learned how to speak Spanish first. Yeah, because at my house, I was raised by a single mom, and my grandma babysat us, and it was just Spanish in our house.
I did not know that. Wow.
Yeah, I was in ESL classes, so fourth grade. I still remember vividly now, going fourth grade, being moved into the regular class with all the other everybody else that spoke English as a first language, and feeling so accomplished, yay, my English is good enough that I could now be in normal class. But yeah, so I remember just doing, I think it was Esther did PR for MUO at that time. And so my media week was with Esther, and Esther's you're twice as busy as most Miss USAs, because I was doing all the English language stuff, but then also the Spanish language press as well, which was such an honor. And because of that, I think I received a lot of love. It was really nice to see, I'm Puerto Rican and Dominican. My mom's from Puerto Rico. My dad is from the Dominican Republic. And so my sisters and I are first generation born in the US. And it was amazing. And especially going to Miss Universe, where Miss Puerto Rico and Miss Dominican Republic are there, but the Dominican press and the Puerto Rican press, they all wanted to talk to me too. And they all said to me, we feel like we have two girls in the running this year, not just one, because Miss USA is Puerto Rican and Dominican. So it was just really nice. I had actually I did not experience racism or of any sort the year that I know of, the year that I was Miss USA.
Yeah, well, and that's so exciting. I love that you mentioned, going to Miss Universe, because there are so many women who speak so many different languages, but there are a ton of women who speak Spanish. And so I remember there were a few times where I think it was Miss Puerto Rico and Miss Mexico and Panama, Mayor. They were all huddled in a group, and they were teaching me some words, because I took Spanish in high school and in college for a bit, but I'm nowhere near bilingual. And so I was I just want to say, I want to be able to communicate. And so that's awesome. That's
great.
Yeah.
But that's so good that you learned some words while you were there. It was that, and I will say that my experience at Miss Universe was probably very different than other Miss USAs, because of the fact that I was able to communicate and have conversations with all of the Latin girls,
Yeah, exactly.
So that was really cool. Yeah.
Now, you're also Miss USA, 2 years after 9/11 here in New York City. What was the environment like in New York City then? I know a lot of people talk about the unity they felt directly after 9/11. Do you think that feeling persisted in 2003?
Yeah, 100%. I think that feeling of unity was something that I feel like I've always experienced that in New York, right? Because after I lived there while I was Miss USA, moved to LA, then got a job at MTV. So I had to go back to New York and live there for a second time. And even when I went back a second time, there's always this New Yorkers have this tight bond that, I don't know if it was there prior to 9/11, but 9/11 was something that, it was obviously super unfortunate, but at the same time, it did create this unity within New Yorkers that I don't quite see living in LA. It's it's just different. People have so much pride when they come from New York, so I definitely experienced that when I was Miss USA.
Yeah, I agree. And I think even now, even with, all the protests going on, even with so many people being angry about George Floyd's death and wanting more change with regard to police brutality and racism that pervades the system, I think even now, when you go to a protest, I've been to a couple, you still do feel that sense of unity among the people that you're protesting with. Is I went out there and there was somebody giving out water bottles and people with book bags because they wanted to give people snacks, and everybody's we're gonna make some change, and it was just really cool to see that environment. So it's still happening again.
Yeah, 100%. My husband and I, not on I mean, it just, I will say that it's like such a bummer that, it's such a bummer that coronavirus is happening because that's something, you know, for health reasons that my husband and I are like, oh, if it wasn't happening, Cheslie, I would be out there all day long, every single day, like protesting along with everyone. But funny enough, I actually live near the mayor's office here, or near the mayor's house. I had no idea that
Oh, wow.
he lives in LA. He lives like in my
gosh.
neighborhood. I had no idea. And my husband and I went for a walk 2 days ago, and we're walking and we start seeing like a bunch of people with signs like going like in the same direction. We're like, let's go see. And we had our masks on and stuff.
Yeah.
So we just kind of followed the crowd a little bit and kept our distance as much as we could, you know. And we arrived at an intersection. There were cops, there were peaceful protesters. They were being so loud and they had a drum and they were like chanting. It was amazing. And just to be there, like I do recommend to folks out there, like anybody that's watching, like even if you're afraid, like you don't want to get COVID, you know, you don't want to be out in the crowd like that. Just stand on the outskirts and be there like in support, you know, if you had like make a sign and go out there. I looked at my husband, I'm like, I wish we had a sign that we could just hold up, because there were other people that weren't in the mass, like in the crowd, they were like across the street, but they still had their signs. And it was like they were peacefully protesting while keeping a distance as well. Yeah. So I'm like, it can be done.
Exactly.
You know? So,
exactly. Yeah.
And it just felt so good.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just going to say that. I was going to say the feeling you get afterwards is like, okay, like I did something. I said something. I spoke up. All of us spoke up together and we felt strong when we were doing it. So that is really, really cool. Side note, guys, I see a lot of like people dropping comments. If you have questions, just drop them in the little question box. It's like the little box with the question mark at the bottom. So I'll be able to see them better. I don't want to miss anything. But so, you know, obviously we're talking about, you know, pageants as a platform, using your voice as a title holder, and being an influential member of society. Tell me about the progress you've seen in title holders over the years, like since you won.
Oh my gosh, like it's been amazing, you know, to watch. I feel like this year specifically, obviously with your win, Miss America being Black, Miss Teen USA being Black, Miss Universe being like such a historic year for pageantry, right? And it actually reminded me, I was thinking about this the other day, it's something that I forget because I never talked about it in interviews the year that I was Miss USA. I think I was just so excited to be Miss USA and to start making my dreams come true. It's so great that I didn't understand. And honestly, I don't think people cared back then about this, right? Like, I wonder if, you know, there were more than one Black title holder back in the day like that, if it would have had this much attention, if people would have embraced it as much as they did this year, right? So when I won, I remember being on stage and, you know, Miss USA 2002, Shantae Hinton, was Miss DC. She was Black. She is Black. And she crowned me a Puerto Rican, a Puerto Rican Dominican girl, and Miss Pennsylvania USA 2003. Shout out to Camille out there. Camille walked over to me and she, you know, she's African American as well. And she walked over and she gave me the biggest hug on stage, you know, like that moment when all the girls are like giving you a hug. And Camille hugged me and she kept me in her arms and she said, do you know, she whispered in my ear, I couldn't even see her face. She said, do you know what just happened here tonight? She said, a minority just crowned another minority, Miss USA. Yep. And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, yeah, that did just happen. But nobody really cared back then that happened, you know, and I had no idea. Like, I pride myself on knowing my pageant trivia and being a pretty good pageant fan. But I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that in the past, there had never been a minority that crowned another minority. And Camille's face, she was just like, girl, like, this is amazing for us. And I was like, oh my God. Yeah. And then, so, you know, cut to, and again, nobody ever asked me about it. I never spoke about it.
So wait, so you're saying like after this happened, like in your press interviews, like there weren't questions about how important it was to have, you know, to see this crowning moment? No. Wow. That's so interesting.
Not one person even really, no, I was never asked, not once. Like, like, hey, you know, the former, your predecessor was was African American, and now you're Latino. What does that mean for our country, or for,
Yeah.
you know, what does that mean for, you know, racism or anything? Like, there were no discussions about that. And now cut to your year, and everybody's having discussions, and I think it's amazing, and I think that that is progress, and it's happening. You know, we have to keep using our voices, we have to keep doing good, we have to keep leading by example. Holy crap, I will say the one thing that I did as much as I possibly could was always tell my story, because I don't even know if I've ever talked to you about this, Cheslie, but you know, I grew up in a poor neighborhood. Again, my mom was poor from Puerto Rico, came to this country for a better life, you know, and seeking a better life, and you know, better paying jobs. And she worked at one point in my childhood 3 jobs to put food on the table. Yeah, she had 2 jobs during the week, and then she had a weekend job. So she had three jobs, which is why my grandma stepped in to help. And she just taught us to work hard, right? And like, yeah, even though we live in the ghetto and like don't, you know, have an apartment that we rent, and we don't have the best clothes and the best things, but we can take a lot of pride in the way we live our lives, and in our hard work, and in our education. And although my mom only had a high school education, she then pushed us to have a college education, you know? So it's like with every generation, you get better. And you don't, you know, one thing that I had a huge issues with growing up was, you know, cousins or friends that were pregnant at 15, 16 years old. It's like, dude, like, that's expected of you. You know what I'm saying? Like, we were minorities in my hometown, and it's like, when the Latin girl or the Hispanic girl or the Black girl got pregnant and was in high school pregnant, that was like, oh, well, yeah,
it wasn't anything. It wasn't, yeah.
Those are Latinos for you. You know what I mean? But, you know, you didn't see that with white people, you know? And so it was like, the standard, white people were held at a different standard, you know, or I mean, I don't know, call it education or whatever, but I tried really hard during my year as Miss USA to tell my story and to share it with as many minority kids as I could, because I wanted them to know, like, look, you just need to work hard. I don't care if you live in the projects right now. I don't care if you can't afford the entry fee to your pageant. Guess what? My mom couldn't afford it either. Like, I had to work, save up. I got sponsors. I did it. And you have to work harder than people who can't afford it, right? But if this is a dream of yours, and you want to advance, like, you need to do it, and just do it.
And I think that being authentic and telling that story, I think, just made you more unique. Made people, it was endearing, I think, even when you're telling it now. So yeah, I think that is good for people to hear from you, and I'm sure it was important for people to hear then. I see one question, and guys, remember to drop the questions in the question box. So I just happened to see this one on the comments. Okay, this question comes from Hadley Tinker. She says, question: if a judge asks you about your stance on the Black Lives Matter movement and they don't appear to support it, how would you go about addressing their question politely without losing their support? Which I think is a good question. I think I think you should always be honest, and I think you should always be unafraid to support what Black Lives Matter is about. And I think that there are times, I think the question even says, you know, if they don't appear to support it, there's no way that you could look at somebody and say they don't support Black Lives Matter, unless they're wearing a t-shirt that says I don't support Black Lives Matter. And so I think that there are certainly times when I've competed in pageants and I thought that, you know, the judges wanted to hear something from me because of, you know, what I'd read on their bio or what I expected of them, or because they were Republican or because they were Democratic. And so I think that, you know, if you support Black Lives Matter, say that you support it. And if you don't, you know, maybe you should ask yourself why you don't understand it, because I think if you truly understand the purpose of Black Lives Matter, you will support it.
So true.
What do you think?
That's so true. I also think, like, at the national level, the Miss Universe organization would never have anybody on the panel that was not supportive of this movement. I mean, if you don't want to call it Black Lives Matter, it's the anti-racism movement. And how can you not be a part of that? You know, how can you anyway, so MUO would never have anybody, I don't think, judge a pageant, Miss USA, Miss Teen USA, Miss, Miss Universe, that wasn't in support. But I think like at the state level, I feel like maybe I can see that happening. Not to say anything bad, I'm not speaking badly of any, that would be allowed, but maybe some, a director didn't know. Or something, that somebody was against it. But I think you're right. I think just explaining, and I always say, like, when you come from a place of love and you're showing that you're empathetic, you can't go wrong. And you have to express what you really feel. You can't tell the judges what you think they want to hear. That never works.
Yeah, it never does. They can see right through it. And I say, I feel like I've been on the other side of the table a few times, and I'm like, you really think that that's what I wanted you to say? And it's not at all. I just wanted you to be honest, but whatever. I think that there was probably a time when there was a time, I'm not even gonna say there was when Black Lives Matter initially emerged as a movement. I think people thought it was like this radical, crazy group, and that everybody was like sort of being racist in a way, racist against white people by saying Black Lives Matter. But I think we've gotten to a point where it is more mainstream, more people understand the movement, and there are so many people nowadays who support the movement who initially didn't. And so I think, there are a lot of people afraid to say like Black Lives Matter because they think that, it's some radical statement. It's not, especially if you actually understand it. I think if you don't say Black Lives Matter, it's clear that you haven't researched and you don't know what this is about. Because if you have, that you're basically saying like Black people have been wronged and there's systemic racism that has harmed this entire race of people, and their lives matter, even though we've demonstrated over and over in history that they don't.
Right. 100%. And that's exactly, and by the way, Cheslie, like, I will be the first one to apologize and admit that when the Black Lives Matter, when it first started, like when they, and it was right around the time, I feel like, that like the Oscars so white hashtag was the thing too, which we heard a lot of, here in LA, and my husband works in the film industry. And so, we always know what's going on. And I just didn't know. I was uneducated on the subject. I was ignorant to it. But the more videos you watch, the more police brutality you see is out there. It's not just a couple bad apples spoiling it for the rest. I know that we all know that there are good cops out there. I have some in my family that are friends of mine back home. They're good people. They're not the ones doing this. But the bad ones have to be held accountable. That's all it is, and you said it perfectly. It's like, when this has been going on for so many, for decades, for hundreds of years.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous.
Well, it's gone on for so long that it really is bigger than just a few untrained cops in police departments across the nation. It's, other people who see wrongs in police departments and don't report them. It's their higher ups not enforcing or introducing policies that will reduce police brutality. It's the people above them refusing to ouster people who don't want progress or change. It's our criminal justice system that refuses to prosecute cops who have murdered people. So I think it's this giant system, and it's like, unless you actually understand that, we're not going to get any place. Okay, I see Kodo's in here. Hey, Kodo. Kodo says he watched 13th today. Thank you for the introduction. It's impossible to support without education. I so agree. So agree.
So true.
Yeah.
It's all about education. Ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is ignorance.
Exactly. Okay, there's a question in here. I'm trying to read it. It's kind of long, so I'm going to read it first before I pop it up here. All right, it says, how do we change the narrative from pageants being about beauty only to relevant platform for all? There are so many positive aspects of pageants, and then the rest of the question is cut off. But I think we got the main point right here. It's like, how do we change the narrative of pageants just being about beauty to being about, our substance, really?
Yes. I think they already have. I don't know how you feel, Cheslie, but I feel like now, before a girl is crowned on stage, I know so much about her. You know what I mean? Like, we know what she's passionate about. She has something, like, we know what kind of Miss USA or Miss Universe, like, we know what kind of title holder she's going to be. And I love that. Yeah,
I agree. I agree that we know so much about her, and even throughout your year that you spend time advocating for issues that actually matter to you. And I think that, I don't think that's, totally a complete disconnect from from pageant title holders in years past. I just think like the focus, the intent focus of everybody in the organization, of the media, when they ask us questions, has shifted. And so I think it's demonstrated, like, you know, I'm not always talking about like makeup and hair, even though there's nothing wrong with talking about that every now and then.
No.
You know, but we do interviews with like AOL Build, we do interviews with Good Morning America, with, you know, CBS This Morning, and they're like, okay, so let's talk about the issues that are going on today. What are your thoughts on these 3 things? And they're like those same current event questions that everybody thought, like, you know, these don't really matter. I'm never going to get asked that. But like, I've talked about like anti-abortion laws. I've talked about immigration. We talked about the legalization of marijuana, and they want our opinion.
Yeah. Yep, they do. And it's great. And they know, I mean, it's kind of awesome. Like they know that the girls can handle it. And it's going on in society, in your world. Like you should have an opinion about it. You should do your research. You should know. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like a title holder is a special human, right? Like she's somebody who should have an empathetic heart. She's somebody that should be involved in her community. So you should have opinions. Like usually people who know stuff have opinions about stuff, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, that was it.
Oh, there you are. Okay. I was like, oh no, did we lose you? Speaking of which, you know, I think especially now with the unrest that's happened in the week since George Floyd was murdered, we've seen a ton of title holders in the USA system, from, you know, Miss Universe to the Miss USAs, and, you know, the 2020 title holders to teens, speaking out about what's happening. What's your thought on why we should speak out and the responsibility we have as title holders to say something?
I think you should always speak out, whether you're a title holder or not. But if you're a title holder and you have people are looking up to you, especially younger people, you know, kids are looking up to you, and you're a role model. Like you have to be doing the right thing. You have to be using that platform and that megaphone that being a title holder gives you. You can't just stay silent. That's just absolutely crazy to me. But again, this is like, to me, these are rules that everybody should live by. But if you're a title holder, even more so, because again, you have that voice. It's like, you know, it always kind of like, it irks me when people are like, celebrities shouldn't be getting involved in politics. It's like, what? They're citizens of the United States, just like you, you know, like why? And they have a platform to talk about the things that they're passionate about. It would be a waste if they did not talk about politics, if they did not talk about the things that they're passionate about. You know, I think it's ridiculous. Everybody out there, just keep talking, voicing, having conversations, sharing stories, educating yourself and others. It's important.
Yeah, I agree. And what are your thoughts on this? So there are a few, I remember being a state title holder, and I don't think that there was ever unrest like we've seen now while I was a state title holder. But I think I would have worried whether or not I needed to stay mostly PC in my, you know, when I spoke out, or whether I could just say what I felt and whether I could make strong statements. So what are your thoughts on title holders like making bold statements? Rather than just staying sort of like neutral when unrest happens?
Yes, I think neutral is the safe way to go. It doesn't show strength because I know you have an opinion, right? So if I'm sitting there as a judge and I'm listening to you and you're giving me some neutral, like kind of half-assed answer, I'm like, tell me what you really think. Like if we were, you know, having a glass of wine at the hotel bar and just had a conversation, you would just be honest with me. And I want honesty. But I think the important thing is, because I know there's a lot of girls out there who don't want to offend anybody. They don't want to say something. And if like half the judges agree with them, but the other half don't, like they don't want to offend anybody. And it's like, you're not going to be offensive if you're speaking from the heart. And if you have empathy and show that you understand, like, if you are, you know, anti-racism, right? And you're part of this movement, let's say, just as an example, like understand how racist people, what they believe in, right? And do your research, try to understand, put yourself in their shoes as well, right? Because let's say, I mean, there won't be at a pageant, but let's say that somebody on your panel is racist and they're like, I don't like, whatever, like, this is how I feel. If you say, you know, I get it, but I feel like people are racist and that's something that exists in our country. But if they get educated, read, learn more about why that's unjust, then I think they'll really start turning and start being, more anti-racist, So like if you can give, my point is, I went off on a tangent. You can give your point, you can give your opinion and still see the other side of things, and talk about that too, as long as you don't completely ignore the people that feel the opposite of you, because again, when you're a title holder, you don't just represent yourself, you represent everybody. So you represent people that believe the same things that you believe in and people that don't. But you want to show the people that don't believe in the same things that you do, that you still care for them and you still care about their opinion and you want to have conversations with them.
Right. Well, and I think you touched on something that's important, in that, there are racist people who exist, and the best way that we can reverse that racism is understanding why they believe the things they believe. Like, for example, there are people who will constantly return my cry of Black Lives Matter with all lives matter. And so I think in making sure that people understand, or winning people to your side, you first have to understand why you're saying all lives matter. Why are you saying that? And I think a lot of people who say all lives matter either don't understand really the true meaning of Black Lives Matter, or they feel threatened. They may think, like, by me saying Black Lives Matter, that means that they're less important. There's a meme that somebody's posted, and somebody said, more rights for Black people doesn't mean less rights for white people. It's not pie. And so I think there are a lot of people who think of, like, life as a pie, and they're like, well, if Black Lives Matter, are you saying that mine doesn't? I'm like, no, we're not saying that at all. So I do think that it's important, if you're trying to win people to your side, if you're trying to win people to the anti-racist side, you first have to take a deep dive and say, like, why are you saying this? Because I really want you to understand my point of view, and I really want you to come with me in this.
Yeah, 100%. So well said.
Yeah. Well, and I think you mentioned something that I think is really important for us to touch on too, is that there are, a lot of people who are new to this space of talking about equality and racism, who are making posts, white people especially, who are making posts who haven't, talked about race or haven't, been anti-racist, and are getting a little bit of pushback. Why do you think that is?
I think there's also a lot of hurt and anger, right? There's a lot of generational trauma that we're seeing being manifested, and I think that I think people are just lashing out at others, and I've seen, my husband's white, and even he is like, Sue's like, I don't know, like, can I post this? Is this okay to post? And it was like, what should I say? I don't know that I'm in any place to say, this isn't, my fight, he said at one point. And I was like, no, but it is. Like, you just have to join us, like, join everyone. I said, because we got to come together. I said, think about it. I said, Black people have been screaming from the rooftops by themselves for decades, and nothing has happened because the rest of us don't join in. And so, like, it saddens me when other people on social media are receiving, white people are receiving a little bit of hate for joining the cause and for speaking out and using their voice and sharing educational materials. And it's like, they feel like I've had like 3 different conversations at this point with, white, either my husband or friends who have reached out and been like, I feel like I can't do anything right now. Like, maybe I should just keep my mouth shut and not do anything. And I'm like, don't do that. Like, because I say it's few, those people that are being counterproductive. And they're just not helping. I said, they're angry. And I said, we can understand that, like, where that anger is coming from. But at the same time, these are new allies now, don't shut them out and don't make them feel ashamed or like they're doing the wrong thing for helping, because they're helping now as best as they can, as they're educating themselves. And the more education they're getting, then, next week or next month, they're going to be sharing about, a book they read on Jim Crow laws, or, on the Black Panthers. Hell, I read something just last night that, growing up, I always thought the Black Panthers were like a criminal group. I did.
Yeah, that was just how they were painted. Yeah.
That's how they were painted. I was brainwashed along with everybody else. And I literally, like, we just need to do our own research. We need to read our own books. We need to rewrite U.S. history to teach our younger generation all of this stuff that we're all now learning. but yeah, it's, you know, my eyes were completely opened to the Black Panther movement from what I read yesterday. And I learned more about Tupac's mom. Holy crap, what an amazing woman. You probably know a lot about her, how she
Oh,
defended
no,
herself.
I don't.
Oh my God, Cheslie, she
You're
was
gonna have to send me whatever book you were reading.
Oh, I read it it was online. It was like her story online, and like just about, yeah, she like defended, she knew nothing. She wasn't a lawyer, but she was the leader of her local Black Panther. I don't know what you would call it, like their unit,
Chapter.
Their chapter. Thank you, their chapter. And she got arrested. She defended herself in court, not a lawyer, wow. And wow. she was successful. She didn't go to jail. Amazing. That's
incredible. I don't know that I could do that. It's tough. But I think what's important, you touched on something a second ago that I think is important. You were saying that, like, you know, we're seeing some people, white people especially, post about, you know, the anti-racist movement, and we're seeing other people, whether that's like Black people or white allies, sort of, you know, combating that and saying, like, this wasn't the right thing to say. You should have said this, or you didn't go far enough. You should have said this. And, you know, I think you were right in saying that, like, there are a lot of people, as Black people or, you know, white allies, who are almost angry, and that anger is justified because we have been so frustrated for so long, you know, trying to fight this fight. But I think what I've had to do for, you know, people who are new to this space is, like, one, just like you said, just encourage them and say, like, look, you started off, it's not always going to be perfect, but you started somewhere. And I think that's different from my experience, for example, when like, you know, every day at some point in time, I am reminded that I am a Black person at some point in time. And I don't think that experience is shared with everyone. I think women often think every day I'm a woman. And it comes up because, you know, you're following, like, you know, a feminist focused Instagram page, or because, you know, some group that you're in that focuses on advocating for women's rights. It's just, there's a reminder every day. And I don't think that that's true for everybody. So it's like, you know, you're new to this space. You don't always think about the problems that Black people or women or Black women face every day. So you don't know what to say. So I have to tell them, like, look, starting somewhere is good. You're not always going to be right. But my mom makes this analogy. She said, it's like when a baby is learning to walk. The baby falls down a lot. It's going to. That's how you learn. And so it's the same thing. Like, you know, you started. Yes, you're gonna. There are times that people are gonna say, like, you haven't said this right. Okay, you did it wrong. Learn some more. And continue working. You know, I think that, you know, what you said is about, like, your husband who was like, is this my fight? Like, you know, it's like you don't have to have breast cancer to walk in the Susan G. Komen walks. You don't have to have diabetes to donate to diabetes foundations. And you do not have to be Black to advocate for Black Lives Matter. So it should be important to all of us. And I'm glad that there are more people who are, like, educating themselves and trying to help and trying to do better.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, I'm seeing a bunch of questions in here. Oh, this is a cool one. Okay, so this is an interesting one. All right, so Kodo Makeup. Hey, Kodo. Kodo says, what do you think about Black excellence? Is it okay to post today as a hashtag? What do you think?
I think so, because again, I think it's just sharing your story and breaking stereotypes. That's what I see, you know, whenever a Black friend or somebody that I follow on social media hashtags Black excellence, I'm like, you should be proud of what you've accomplished, because it's a lot. And so many people in our country are, you know, I mean, pretty much everybody has immigrated, like their families, ancestors have immigrated from elsewhere. But, you know, when you are first generation born here, it's usually because you're fleeing some sort of oppression or poverty or something, right? And if you are accomplishing new things that people in your family or in your heritage, like people like you, haven't accomplished, then yeah, you should be proud of that, and you should hashtag Black excellence.
Exactly. Sure. I agree. And I think it's just what you said, breaking stereotypes. Like, for example, there was, I can't remember if it was a graphic I would read or something. I feel like I've consumed so much information in this past week. But they were talking about the difference between resumes when you have a white sounding name versus, like, a Black sounding name. And they were saying, like, if you see two resumes that have the same accomplishments, same GPA, same, university, and one has a white sounding name, one has a black sounding name, the white sounding name resume will get twice as many callbacks as the black sounding name. And so we have hashtags like Black Excellence to demonstrate that Black people can be excellent and are excellent, because there are certain things, certain, you know, stats and data, history, systems that have demonstrated that, like, that is not how we are viewed. And so I think use it, Black Excellence. I love to see it.
Yeah.
So many
Absolutely.
people use the hashtag when, like, me and Nia and Susie and everybody were doing like our 5 Black women thing, and it was like, Black Excellence.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, I love to see it. Okay, there are a few more questions. Wow, we got a lot of questions on here, guys.
Yay.
After 1 year, okay, so I don't know how to pronounce your name. Kocher, I think is your last name. Says, what's the mix of feelings you have after 1 year when the crown and title goes to another beauty pageant? I'm guessing you mean like when we're done with our 1 year reign. What does that feel like? Please,
I know, you're not there yet.
I know.
You're getting a long reign too. Which is amazing. That's awesome. Listen, couldn't have happened to a better girl. Like, yes, you're so great. Like, let's keep Cheslie here as Miss USA for as long as we possibly can. I think it's bittersweet, the moment, but I have to say I was ready. It wasn't a sad moment at all for me, because, you know, I wasn't a pageant girl. I didn't grow up doing pageants. I saw pageant when I was 17. It was brought to my attention that I could get an agent and a manager in Hollywood because if I won this pageant. And I was like, oh, really? And, you know, growing up in Massachusetts, I started modeling when I was 14. And then from modeling, I took an acting class, and then I was like, I want to be an actor. I want to be on television. Like, that became my dream. And I knew as I got older and continued doing research that I had to move to Los Angeles, but I didn't know a single soul out here. I had no resources. Like, I didn't know who could help me. And I certainly didn't want to be one of the hundreds of girls that moves out here all the time. You know, it's like, to me, that was so dangerous. I didn't want to do it that way. And somebody said, you should try this pageant, because if you win, you know, all your dreams will come true. And so literally, like, Paula Sugar was so sweet. She set me up with the Willie Morris agency. Now it's Willie Morris Endeavor, or WME, which represents the Miss Universe organization. But Paula is very well connected and made some introductions. And I had that agent that I needed before. I mean, I think within the first month of being Miss USA, I was already signed with the Willie Morris agency. And so, so I was ready. I was ready to start my career. I was like, oh my God, okay. I was like, and I'm done. I did it.
You've done so many great things during your reign. But by the time were you engaged to your husband before you gave up your title too?
Wow. Yeah, that happened during, Nia's asking how old I was when I won. I was 22 when I won. I turned 23 the year I was Miss USA. And my birthday, I had an appearance at the Pentagon in DC. And and when I walked into this conference room, they had a cake for me. So I celebrated my 23rd birthday at the Pentagon, which was pretty amazing.
That's epic. That's what that is.
It's so fun.
Yeah, so you had it's like you had your professional life, you had your personal life all set and ready to go when you were done.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And and I was just, I was just ready for it. I was so, when I crowned Shandy, I was like, okay, like, vaya con Dios, new girl. Like, call me if you need me, but you'll be fine. I'll be in LA, like, starting my career. I was so excited.
Yeah. Oh, and Nia says it's very, very bittersweet. Yeah, I can imagine, like, it ending. I just thought the other day, like, especially since we've all been locked in the house, I don't remember the last time I got to wear my sash. Actually, I take that back. I think I wore it once for, like, a video I was doing for Girls on the Run. It's this, like, nonprofit. And other than that, I'm like, I miss putting on my sash. I couldn't imagine if, like, there was not going to be another time where I would go to, like, an official appearance as Miss USA with my life.
I know. That's the only thing, and I remember, I think contractually, you've probably read it in your contract. You technically, because it's a job, it's a, salaried job, you get, 2 weeks vacation or whatever. I didn't take any of it. I'm like, well, why would I take a vacation from this job that I can only have for a year?
Yeah, you will never get it back. Yeah.
Never. I don't even know if any title holder has ever taken her 2-week vacation.
I don't know. I didn't even know that. Although there certainly are times where like I think like 4th of July last year, I think I went home and spent the weekend with my family.
Yeah. Christmas, like all those. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Nia says that she went to Hong Kong and Japan. Lit.
That's funny. That's awesome. Oh, somebody's asking if I ever considered the idea. Who's Insta Charles? Charles? Hi, Charles. If I ever considered the idea of competing in Puerto Rico before competing in the USA. No.
Oh, did you? No, you didn't?
No.
Why not?
No, because my Spanish is very conversational, which is great, and it comes in handy, and you know, it's part of my culture. I love it. I love keeping that alive. But I don't know, I'm very self-conscious about speaking in an intelligent manner in Spanish, you know, like my vocabulary isn't like as developed as somebody who was born and raised in Puerto Rico. And and the girls in Puerto Rico, like to answer a hard question in Spanish, but just sound confident about your answer, like terrified me.
I couldn't imagine.
So that was
like talking about like current event. I think it's like a whole separate like language. It feels like you have to like relearn how to talk about like social issues and you know government issues and politics and
and also it's a completely different country. It's a whole other country. It's a U.S. territory, but it's not, you know, so they're technically Americans in Puerto Rico, but it's totally different. Their issues there are different than the ones that we have here. So yeah, that was terrifying, and it was never an option for me. Never a consideration.
Things worked out well here.
Yeah, thank God.
Okay, we've got another question. Ashlyn X Manuel says, what is your favorite phase of pageants?
Favorite phase? Oh man, that's hard because I have the gift of gab. I used to get in trouble all the time for speaking.
For talking too much?
Oh yes. Cheslie, when I got my MTV job, I remember calling my mom being like, Mom, they're paying me to talk. Isn't that amazing? Because I got grounded. I was so many detentions when I was a kid for talking. I was just talking. So obviously interview is like, I love because it's an opportunity. When I did interview, it was an opportunity for the judges to get to know me, for me to have a conversation with them and make them a little more human rather than a person like staring at me on stage, you know? But I also loved like, you know, just the showmanship of being on stage and that energy of being on stage. And, you know, like I said, I started modeling when I was 14. And by the time I started doing pageants, posing and walking like runway was something I loved, you know? And so I love it all. I cannot answer that question. Sorry.
My answer is pretty simple and easy. I just love swimsuit. It's my favorite.
You love swimsuit?
Yeah, it's definitely my favorite. Because I think I just tend to overthink when it comes to interview and on-stage question. And you know this because we worked together for a couple of years before North Carolina USA and at USA and a little bit for Universe. Is like, I feel like whenever I get an interview, I just end up turning out to be like very robotic or seem programmed. And I think that's because like I'm an attorney and it's hard for me not to just be like serious and, you know, show emotion. So I think when it comes to interview, like I'm super hyper aware of that, and it just like makes me more nervous. Whereas for swimsuit, I'm like, here I come, here I am, guys. So I just think it's like low pressure for me, just fun.
Yeah, I can see that. My God, but your interview was so amazing, and the way you speak on stage, forget it. Holy crap.
Well,
but I can see that. That's so interesting because you would think that being an attorney and having that that background would help you in an interview, but I totally get what you're saying, that like just it's a different type of speech. It's a different way of communicating than in an interview.
Yeah, I agree, because like, you know, you don't want to show emotion, you don't want to necessarily, well, I mean, you can be warm when you're in the courtroom, but that's just not really what your focus is. Your focus is being convincing about like legal issues. I think I think it does help for on-stage question because you really do have to think on your feet, and that's exactly what you have to do. But like for an interview, I think it was as helpful as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Cheslie, I have a question for you, actually. Something that I'm just wondering, I'm like, gosh, as an attorney, like what, are you going to go back to being an attorney after Miss USA? Or, I mean, because now you're on television, you're an extra. I could see like, I don't know, like some sort of legal show
I'll be on Law and Order. Yeah, that'll be cool. Be a
something.
lawyer. Yeah, I would love to be
Something.
like a DA on Law and Order. How cool would that be? Um, no, like I love the work that I've done with Extra. Hopefully, I'll be able to continue doing that, and sort of see where that goes. And yeah, that's sort of like the general
Yeah,
plan. And I don't want to like announce too much before we have things set in stone. But like that's really
true.
what I would love to do. But like for me, I think I look up so much to like you as a role model because obviously you did the MTV VJ, you did tons of hosting gigs. You actually were successful as an actress. And so I think, just seeing you is like a great model for the kind of career that I would love, and being able to like not only host, but also be an actress and have new opportunities. Obviously I love speaking as well. And so I would love doing some public speaking
Yeah.
whenever we have time nowadays, probably
Yeah.
virtually. But yeah, that's sort of the general direction. Even though the law is still open for me. My firm, actually, I think they still have my office open, which is really, really cool.
That's
Yeah,
so
so,
cool.
yeah, I still have like pictures in there and stuff, and I can't remember the last time I went to go visit it, but yeah, so
Wow.
it's nice that my firm has been so supportive of me and has
Yeah.
just sort of like left that door open.
Right. That's really cool. I know. No, I remember before I went to Miss USA, I was getting ready in my job at the time. They were like, my boss was like, so if you win, will you be coming back? And I said, no. Like, I love you guys, but no. I will only be back if I don't win. But if you're watching the pageant and I win, feel free to start asking for applications and replacing me immediately. And it was just so funny. We all, we had a great relationship, but I'm like, yeah, no.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So,
Yeah.
okay, it looks like we probably have time for one more question. Oh, love this question. This couldn't be a better question. Okay, Faith.Charles says, what was one of your favorite things that you have advocated for during your reign? This is a great close. Thank you for that question. So,
Yeah, that's a really great question because there was so much. So back in the day when I was Miss USA, the official cause of Miss USA was breast and ovarian cancer awareness. So I did a lot of work with that. There was so much, and afterwards, I can't remember, someone at MUO was like, hey, like collectively, your entire year, you helped raise over $30 million for the causes, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's incredible.
So I was like, okay, that's great. So that was something I have to say, breast and ovarian cancer awareness and research. But then also like, it really was super important to me to elevate the Latin community my year and to really, like I said earlier, to share my story and to let the younger generations know that, look, if you're living in poverty right now, if whatever your current situation is, it doesn't have to hold you back. Because I grew up poor. I grew up in the ghetto in Massachusetts. I grew up with a single mom. We were on welfare for a little bit when I was, because she had to. My mom actually used it for what it's supposed to be, and was off of welfare once she could afford to live, and to properly provide for her 3 children. Because my dad, I know a lot of people don't know this, but like my dad just up and left when I was 5 years old and left my mom with 3 kids. So yes, she was on welfare, but she used it responsibly. And even if you come from that situation, here I was telling these kids this story, wearing my Miss USA sash and my Mikimoto crown. And it was just so great. And I can't tell you, Cheslie, how many times after a speech, somebody would come after me, a mom with her young daughter and in tears, like, thank you so much for sharing your story, because I'm a single mom and my daughter, her dad's absent, and I try to encourage her, and that's why I'm here. And that's why I wanted to, her to meet you. And it's just awesome. And we can one person can make a difference, for a lot of people.
exactly.
Anyway, what about you?
Well, I love that. My God, like I almost don't want to like follow that. I just want to be there. Like, it really is an incredible story. And you're right. I think it's so important for people to actually see that, just to see it and have that visual, like, okay, she came from this and look at her now, is so powerful. Just that visualization.
Sure.
So for me, I think, we work with so many organizations. It really is hard to just pick one. But I think one of my favorite times, I think the silver lining of this time is that, COVID and this movement we're in right now, a resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement, has been an important time for me, because I think it has forced us as an organization to be creative in our response to the needs of the nonprofits that we work with. So like for Smile Train, there was a smile campaign they had where you take a picture of a smile and you'd have to post that on social media. For Best Buddies, there was like a Best Buddies walk. There was the Best Buddies music video. For Dress for Success, instead of being able to continue my in-person physical tour across the nation, we've been doing like virtual workshops with women for interview and resume review. And, you know, just being able to like go out and protest and post resources and education on my page, and to have it posted like on the Miss USA page and the Miss Universe page, like what a moment that is. So I think just this time by itself, these last few months, as unfortunate and sad as they have been with, you know, the infections and the deaths, I think has required us to answer and to be flexible. And I think that has been a cool moment to be a part of.
100%. Wow, that was amazing. I thought about you when all this happened, when it all started, because I was like, the same words that you just said. I was like, wow, what a time for Cheslie specifically to be Miss USA. Because it's true, you mentioned it earlier, and for those of you guys who are listening, you know, I met Cheslie a few years ago. She competed at North Carolina USA how many times? Twice?
3 times.
3 times. I think I met you at try number 2, and you were first runner-up or second runner-up?
I didn't make the top 5 that year. I was like I started off my first year I was 4th runner-up. My second year I was top 10, and then my last year I won.
Okay. So I just remember that happened, right? And then we coached you again. It's like, and you didn't win those first 2 times because this was your time. You were meant to be here. You were meant to be Miss USA. So it's just, gosh, like that's like, for pageant girls who get upset after you don't win, you guys, there is a reason behind it. Had Cheslie won in 2 years ago, like,
it would have been different. It would have been totally different. Oh wait, here you are. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, it just, I'm back. Sorry. My little sister was calling me. Yeah, you know, had you won back then, like, would the title of Miss USA had been as impactful during this time as it has been? You know, we were meant to have a smart, gorgeous lawyer as Miss USA that is also African American, to speak for her people and to continue educating folks. All of this is not by mistake.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Susie. That means a lot coming from you, so I really, really appreciate it. Perfect. Okay, so we're coming to a close. We're nearing our 1 hour before we get kicked off of Instagram. So, Susie, seriously, thanks again for being on. Thank you guys for your incredible questions. Thank you, Susie, for being candid and sharing your stories with us. I think it's so important for people to hear, and we're really glad that you spent your time with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I adore you. It's been awesome having this conversation, and I encourage everybody that's been listening to just continue using your voice, you know, and if you have any questions, I mean, DM us or send us if you have questions. Yeah. And just, you know, we want to encourage you to continue supporting your fellow brothers and sisters, no matter what the color of their skin is. Even if you see an injustice toward a white person, speak up for that white person. Speak up for the Black person. Speak up for the Asian person. All of them. Like, we just have to use our voices, and we have to do that. We can't just stand around and do nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Cheslie.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Thank you for watching, everybody.
See you.
Bye.
See y'all next time.